Leading off the show with some good World Cup news, so I'll let you know that our World Cup coverage is brought to you by Oakland County Football Club, celebrating 10 years of summer soccer in Southeast Michigan, participating in USL 2 once again in 2026. Visit Oakland County FC online for tickets and news. And there's been plenty of news coming out, including an update on an official partnership with legendary Vardar Academy and participation in this year's TST Cash Prize Tournament. All right, good news. It is World Cup games are back on in Boston. After a tense few weeks, the Crafts are stepping up to pay that nearly $8 million shortfall for their security budget to get the license to have those games in Foxborough.
This was always going to happen, Rob. There was no circumstance under which the Boston games of the World Cup were going to be canceled because the town board of Foxborough, Massachusetts, dug in and refused to license the game because nobody was paying the bill. Somebody was going to pay the bill. This was just a game of chicken that probably went a little too long. Let's be honest about this. The town of Foxborough had every right to stand up for themselves and say, no, we ain't paying your security bill. We're a small town. You just built a stadium here, and now we're responsible for, administrating some of the elements around it. We should not have to pay the bill for your security when the World Cup is coming. You guys have a lot of money, whether you're the Kraft family, FIFA, the organizing committee of the Boston games. So this was always going to be the result. I guess it just, again, as long as the town didn't get railroaded here, then this is a positive thing, because this is a rounding error when it comes to the FIFA tournament that's happening in the United States of America.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever been prouder of complete strangers in my life, like reading something like I can't imagine what's happened behind the scenes. I imagine there's been some pretty nasty phone calls and some after their city council hearings. I'm sure there's been some guys in some nice suits have some very intense, put the hand on the shoulder type conversations. And these are I think we saw that they get a $90 monthly stipend or something. These aren't professional politicians here. And they stood their ground for small town Foxborough. It's a tiny town that happens to have a giant NFL stadium in it. The Boston organizers, they made all these arrangements without really including them. And they stood their ground and they got what they wanted, which is just great news in a world where there's not a whole lot of headlines.
Yeah.
We get one here, and I couldn't be, it's very pleasing. And we haven't had too many positive World Cup updates in the recent months, so it's good to see at least one.
As part of this arrangement, the town of Foxborough will not incur any cost or financial burden related to the FIFA World Cup, with Boston Soccer 2026 providing advanced funding for security-related capital expenditures and the full extent of deployment that public safety officials have determined is needed to execute the event, with Kraft Sports plus Entertainment's backing. So that, again, who is ultimately responsible for paying this bill? Not the town of Foxborough. The people who are demanding that the town of Foxborough secure the site for 39 days. Here we go. And again, we heard about the lawyer showing up and saying, well, we'll write you a promissory note. The town being like, no, that's not good enough. You got to actually put your money down right now so that we can make sure that we're not going to be dealing with a line item in our budget that shows a negative next to it. And so here we go. This is good. Look, there's part of us and part of me, I guess, and I would love to know from the Ultras how you feel about this, that we're kind of like, okay, yeah, don't license these games. Yeah, keep it going. Get it all the way to the line. I'm not saying we want the World Cup to be completely ruined to the point that games can't happen. But I think there was this sense that with some of the cynicism around the World Cup and some of the negative things, the price gouging, the politics that had entered the fray, it was almost like, I'm just rooting for chaos at this point. So that side of me is now getting pushed aside, and I'm back to, okay, we got it. We got to play games. We got to get this going.
Yeah, this is a unique setup in a way with the city council in the small town of Foxborough. But I'm curious to see if this sets a precedent, because obviously other towns are probably having budgetary issues like that. It was highlighted because it was a small town. They couldn't possibly cover this. It was a significant percentage of their entire annual budget. So there's no way they could go out of pocket for it. But I'm curious if there will be a cascading effect if other cities and municipalities are going to kind of push back on what they're being expected to lay out there. And an interesting note that the Kraft put into this news was they were definitely keen to say that the company, the Kraft Group company, was neither the applicant on the license nor the host committee, but has made a good faith effort to work with the town to prepare for this historic event. Just basically saying like, this wasn't my job, but I did it anyway.
Yeah, I mean this whole thing was about passing the buck. Who's ultimately responsible?
Who's
The
holding the
town says,
bag?
not us. We don't have the money, and you're the one demanding this, and we didn't. We need to be able to pay people, and we need to not have this kill our budget. The Kraft Group was saying, well, we're not actually the ones applying for this. Normally we would for a Revolution game, for a Patriots game, but it's not us this time, or for a concert that we might be running in our building. But actually, this is FIFA this time, so deal with FIFA. And then the Boston Organizing Committee was like, well, we actually aren't going to get any money from FIFA because they don't want to set that precedent that they pay for it. So, yeah, we'll just figure this out behind the scenes and get back to you. And the town was like, no. So, again, I think this was basically down to holding the Kraft Sports Group feet to the fire, which I said was going to be the thing anyway. Because if Robert Kraft wants to cozy up to Johnny Infantino, if this is, if he lobbied for FIFA to give games to quote unquote Boston 25 miles outside the city in a place like Foxborough, Massachusetts, so that Robert Kraft could reap the rewards of being part of the World Cup, well, then ultimately the buck stops with you. End of story.
And no doubt about that. And then I just put up a message from one of our MK Ultra Sluggo. I'm curious to see, maybe we could put a poll up on this on the YouTube channel. Is anyone feeling like Sluggo, he just kind of wants to get the World Cup over with now? Is that just like because we're jaded in this build-up moment and there's all these headlines? Is it going to be another one of those where like once it starts, we're going to be happy because this is the peak of what we like?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's easy to be very negative about it right now. Again, because a lot of the news that is coming about the World Cup is negative, right? We're being hammered with stories like ticket price gouging and Foxborough and the bill, and again, will Iran play in the World Cup and things like that. Like, we're being hammered with negative stories about the World Cup. And again, the world in a lot of ways, like even if you are for some of the things that are happening geopolitically, it's not good to be in war, right? That's never a good thing. So how can you possibly have this positive vibe about what's coming in the summer when there are such bigger issues out there lurking in American society and worldwide society, right? The party vibe is kind of off when we're all dealing with this stuff and Russia, Ukraine, and Iran and Israel and all that stuff. So I think right now it's easy to be negative, but I do think that once we get to the moment, once the tournament kicks off, it's going to feel different because we'll be in it. And I tried to write myself into some positive thinking around American soccer on my newsletter, which I dropped today. Jason Davis Soccer Eagle, please subscribe. It wasn't necessarily about the World Cup specifically. It was just about being a soccer fan in this moment. And this show is a reflection of my attitude, which I've been developing sort of for the last 15 years, that we are in a singular place as soccer fans in America that care about the game's growth here, right? And that means what I mean by that is no other sport in history, no other league, movement, development, like pyramid, no other has been in this exact place. At a moment in history where we have access to all the information we can get our hands on, right? It's there for us to find. The internet is amazing that way for all its flaws. And we're watching the development of a sport, even though it is third, fourth, fifth, depending on who we're talking to in terms of the ranking of sports in America. Millions of people go and watch soccer games in person in America every year. Millions more people watch the sport on television from America every year, right? Millions upon millions of people are engaged with this game, even though it's not the biggest sport in the country. And we get to watch it grow and change and morph, and there's no ceiling. Like, for whatever we're concerned about with the USL business model or the CBA negotiations or MLS being single entity or whatever your thing is that you don't like about the way soccer operates in America, where's the ceiling? You don't know where it is. We know what the ceiling of the Premier League is. It's pretty much hitting it now. We know where the ceiling of the NFL is. It's been hitting it for the last 30, 40 years. We don't know where the ceiling of soccer in America is. And I think that's awesome. I think that's great. I hate to be overly positive, but I think that's great.
It's good to have a hint of positivity here, and it's great to have a positive note that the games in Boston are on, with the resolution that the Krafts are going to pay that security bill. And before we move on, I want to remind you one more time that the World Cup coverage on Morning Kickaround is presented by Oakland County FC, celebrating 10 years of summer soccer in Southeast Michigan in 2026. Visit Oakland County FC online for tickets, news, and more.